What's up, y'all? Today, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite story tropes, and that is a good hero-villain team-up. Because whenever heroes and villains have to team up, one, you know whatever's going on is about to be peak, and two, things have gotten so crazy, they gotta put their differences aside and go to work for the greater good. So to kick it off, we gotta talk about Peter Parker and Harry Osborn. Spider-Man 3 is one of my favorite superhero movies, and I just generally love the whole Sam Raimi trilogy, as most people do. I think this movie is really overhated, and I've seen it at least 8 times, but rewatching it as a grown man actually makes me like it even more, despite it being seen as one of the worst Spider-Man movies. With all that being said, the Peter-Harry dynamic was crazy in this trilogy. They were pretty good buddies in the first, and in the second, Harry starts to put Peter through hell. Every time I see that scene when he smacks him in the middle of that dinner party, I still say damn. I really aspire to have the mental fortitude that Peter Benjamin Parker has, because had that been me, a triangle and circle would have most definitely popped up over Harry's head. When Peter gets captured later on in the movie, Harry also finds out that he's Spider-Man and completely loses it. So, with that movie ending with them being at peak tensions, Spider-Man 3 starts with them beefing off rip. I really like how this movie forces Peter to learn about humility because he swears he's on top of the world for most of it. Saving the city when Sandman first attacks, them celebrating him at that little festival, and then thinking things are all good getting ready to propose to MJ, but his ego gets the best of him. And the symbiote doesn't help him much either, but we're not there just yet. We get straight hands between Harry and Peter after he leaves Aunt May's house, and throughout their whole fight, Peter is just trying to protect the ring that he plans on giving to MJ. He ends up knocking Harry off of his hoverboard and sends him to the hospital, causing him to lose some of his memory. When we fast forward a little bit, this whole movie, MJ and Peter are just on the rocks. Peter is fighting for his life and sold the bag so bad, now his girl is making omelets with his best friend, and she even kisses him. As expected, Harry gets his memory back not too long after and wants to ruin Peter's life. I gotta talk about this real quick because it's one of my favorite details in this movie and it feels very overlooked. But when Harry is in the hospital and first wakes up, he asks Peter if his dad died, and Peter tells him that he did by nodding ever so slightly. But when Harry gets all of his memories back, instead he remembers Peter smiling and laughing, saying yeah. If that's not peak storytelling, I don't know what is. Harry starts his revenge tour by sliding on MJ. He forces her to meet with Peter and call things off because she has feelings for another guy and leaves him. So Peter, of course, wants to confide in his best friend, and he tells Harry about the whole situation. But then he's like,
I'm the other guy.
Me personally, I wouldn't take this level.
What?
and you know, symbiote Peter was feeling the same way. So he goes to Harry's house and confronts him, and Harry's still talking crazy to Peter's face.
Strawberries.
They end up scrapping, but we all know how that goes. Peter demolishes Harry, and to add insult to injury, Harry takes a pumpkin bomb to the face after trying to hit Peter with it. Later on, Sandman and Venom team up because they're both like, you know what? We both hate Spider-Man. Let's ruin his life too. Venom captures Mary Jane and Sandman starts wreaking havoc on the city while a whole bunch of civilians watch it on the news alongside Peter. And he realizes he has to suit up one more time. He grabs his suit out of its case and we get this super cliche shot of him running in front of the American flag, and we're coming down to the final showdown. But let's rewind a little bit. Peter begged Harry for his help because he knows he can't handle the two villains by himself, but Harry refuses and lets Peter see what he did to his face, leaving him with no choice but to go off on his own. So now I'm gonna hit the pause button because one of the most annoying things in this movie comes up right here. The Osborn's butler, Bernard. A big part of Spider-Man 3 is forgiveness, but that's not where it ends. Bernard walks into the room and finally tells Harry the truth about how his father died by his own glider. The reason why I hate this scene is because of where it's dropped into the film. Harry just told Peter that he doesn't deserve his help, and Bernard just pops out from the corner and drops a truth bomb that just so happened to be needed in that moment. There's a deleted scene that shows Harry picking up a picture of him, MJ, and Peter instead, and thinking about how his closest friends are in danger and that they actually do need him, so he goes out to help. When I learned that that scene existed, I was like, why didn't they go with this? But I sat with my thoughts and I put it together. Even though Bernard was low-key a villain for letting that kind of info stay under wraps, it shows us that the sins of the past will always catch up with us. Peter letting that robber run off with the cash led to Uncle Ben's death. Harry's refusal of seeing his father be a villain causes his relationship with Peter to collapse, and Bernard never telling Harry how his father really died causes him to spiral even further. Realizing this actually made me okay with this scene. I just wish it went down in a different way so it didn't purely look like plot convenience. So Peter goes over to MJ to try to save her on his own, but if we're being honest, it goes downhill very fast. The man starts to get pummeled in a very lopsided 2v1. Venom and Sandman have him down tremendously, and Sandman's about to finish the job, but looky here, there's a pumpkin bomb in his ear. Harry swoops in and lends his boy Pete a helping hand, and they start cooking. They put up combo moves left and right, save MJ from falling to her death, and Sandman gets dealt with. But Peter ends up getting caught up with Eddie Brock, and Harry puts his life on the line and sacrifices himself to save him, going out just like his father did. In the end, they were able to put things aside, despite being in one of the most toxic love triangles and really friendships of all time, adding to the lesson of forgiveness that is all over this movie and part of why I love it so much. And next up, we've got two icons. Batman and the Joker. Batman the Brave and the Bold is one of my favorite cartoons from my youth, and a nice animated love letter to the world of DC. It introduced me to a lot of lesser known characters like Wildcat and Jaime Reyes' Blue Beetle. One of, if not my favorite episodes, is when Batman actually ends up on another Earth after getting attacked by Owlman in the Batcave. He's able to defeat him and goes to his Earth wearing Owlman's suit to find out how he got there, and once he arrives, he realizes it's an inverse of his own. The villains are the good guys and the good guys are the bad. They also made Aquaman green because that equals evil, I guess. So, our boy is deep undercover, trying to figure out how to stop the villains of this Earth, and ends up meeting the Red Hood. No, not that one. The Joker before he became the Joker. On this Earth, he still falls into a vat of chemicals, but it doesn't turn him into a villain, and instead, he's their equivalent of Batman. Our Batman goes on a job with the Injustice Syndicate, and they end up running into him. Batman tackles him in a spot where they can't be seen, and he's like, let me help you. He gives Red Hood a calm, and this is when he discovers that he's talking to their Joker. Then he knocks him out and brings him in so that others don't suspect anything. But this whole time, the Blue Bowman has been suspicious of Bat Owlman while Red Hood gets interrogated, and sends dynamite after him. His cover gets blown, and after some fighting here and there, Batman's able to free Red Hood and all the heroes of this Earth and defeat the Injustice Syndicate. Batman then says goodbye to Red Hood and goes back to his Earth, but he's greeted by wanted posters everywhere. This one's a two-parter. In part 2, Batman goes on the run after finding out that Owlman has been undercover as him, basically ruining his life. He bumps into the Joker, who actually hates that Owlman has become a bigger menace to Gotham than him, so he decides to help him. A really cool detail in this episode is that Owlman actually wears Batman's suit from his very first comic appearance. You even see him with a gun later. Owlman ends up capturing most of the heroes with some help from the usual villains, and Batman and Joker come through for one final showdown. But guess what? The Joker betrays him and turns him into a wax statue. But guess what again? Batman's too good for that. He doesn't get turned into a statue. Instead, he uses the wormhole device that got Owlman there in the first place. For everyone there, he was gone for a split second, but he had actually been gone for a week, so he could recruit other Batmen, and with their help, he ends up freeing the other heroes and ultimately defeating Owlman. The other Batmen take him back to his Earth, and the Joker gets locked up. We actually get a really bittersweet moment since Batman knows that deep down the Joker does have the ability to be heroic, and the episode ends. In a time like today where multiversal stories are kind of getting played out, this was a really cool introduction to the concept for me when I was little. These were two insanely solid episodes for a cartoon that I feel really flies under the radar for a lot of people. And lastly, we've got Billy Butcher and Homelander. The Boys has provided some top tier television, and if you haven't yet, please give it a watch because there will just be a bunch of spoilers up ahead. And be warned that this show is insane. It's a take on superheroes in a world where they are nowhere near as pure and hopeful as you think they'd be, and just like Invincible, I love you! It's a refreshing watch in this era where everyone is starting to suffer from superhero fatigue. Billy Butcher and Homelander have become one of the biggest feuds in fiction, and for good reason. They're each the leaders of their respective teams and hate each other. It's undeniable that neither of them are actually good people, but Homelander is a demon. About 99% of this man's actions are absolutely insane, starting from episode 1. He took Butcher's wife, made her have his son against her own will, and is the reason why she went missing for 8 years. He is the sole reason why Butcher despises superheroes as much as he does. Through the boys' escapades, he does eventually find his wife, but when it seems like they're about to have the closest thing they could to a happy ending, she ends up being killed by Ryan, her and Homelander's son. And if anything, this fueled his hatred for Homelander even more. Season 3 of The Boys was some heat, and it introduced a new card for the boys to use. Basically, the heroes of this world gain their powers through a super serum called Compound V. The boys were able to find a temporary Compound V that gives a normal person powers for 24 hours. This season also introduced Soldier Boy, America's first hero. The boys found him in Russia after getting tipped off that there was some kind of super weapon that they could use to actually kill Homelander, but it turned out that Soldier Boy was that weapon. A very PTSD-filled weapon who is just as insane as the other heroes, if not worse. So, when we get to the season finale, the boys go and finally confront Homelander with Soldier Boy, and they speak to each other, because it turns out that Homelander is Soldier Boy's test tube baby.
What? I beat my meat into a cup.
He's trying to convince his dad that they don't need to fight and can be a happy family instead. said, and he even pulls Ryan out from the side to show Soldier Boy his grandson. But Soldier Boy completely shatters Homelander's soul, calls him a disappointment, and gets ready to kill him. Ryan shoots a laser at him trying to stop him, and ends up pushing him away. Now, Soldier Boy messes up here because he knocks Ryan away, and that's all it takes for Homelander and Butcher to lock in. Ryan's the only thing tying the two of them together, and with Homelander's biggest thing wanting to be a part of a family, he has a chance to do that now with Ryan, so he doesn't hesitate at all to defend him. On the flip side, Butcher not only promised Becca that he'd take care of Ryan and raise him right, Ryan's also the last piece of her that he has. So, in this very moment, he finds himself fighting alongside the sole individual he despises with every fiber of his being. And this is where I have to burst the bubble, because you would think there would be a whole epic battle that spans the rest of this episode, but that's not exactly how it goes. I remembered it being a lot longer in my head. Butcher and the boys go off to fight Soldier Boy, and Homelander's former teammate Maeve takes the moment to fight Homelander herself because they have tons of beef between them, and she definitely had him on the ropes. After all the fighting subsided, Butcher and Homelander have one last stare down, and I thought, no way they're about to scrap right now. But they don't. Ryan tells Homelander that he wants to go, and they both dip. I'm pretty excited for season 4 whenever it comes out, and that spin-off show that's coming out in about a month. There's a lot plot-wise that I'm looking forward to getting answers to, or just seeing what happens in general, since what they do in the show is pretty different from the comics. And that's pretty much it for me. Let me know some of your favorite hero-villain team-ups, because I may even make a sequel to this video. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, because it would be great and I would appreciate it a lot. And I'll see y'all later. Have a good one.